Okay, guys, we need to start. Now we are almost reached the finish line, but still something to do. Two notifications. I can't see now QR code, but you still can leave us reviews. And the other notification is that have you already seen the photos from this event? Great. Because yeah, every day the photos are updated so you can find yourself on Flickr, official YOUthDIG Flickr. So do it. And now let's continue the traditions. I want to invite the moderator of the session, Riccardo Nani, to present the reflection of the day from YOUthDIG perspective.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming on the very last day, afternoon, right after lunch. Thank you all for your participation. This is the last intergenerational dialogue for this year's EuroDIG. Thanks again to Nadia Tiahia and Vlad Ivanets for organizing this new type of session with me. Today, the youth participants are going to share their impressions on artificial intelligence, which was the topic of the day. So I'd like to invite the two youth volunteers, Mariam Jathava and João Trocado. Thank you for volunteering. Please, you can take your seat here on the stage. And they will... João and Mariam will interact with our distinguished key participant, Honorable Gennaro Migliore, who I also invite on stage. Okay, so like yesterday, we will open with remarks from the youth participants, a response from the key discussant, and then we will open the floor to general reactions. Today we have half an hour, so we're going to try and finish around 3 o'clock. So without further ado, I'd like to leave the floor to our youth participants for their remarks.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Mariam. I'm from Georgia. I'm the YOUthDIG representative this year, and I have a huge responsibility to discuss my opinions about today's meetings from a perspective of our youth. From keynotes to subtopics, workshops, and flashes, I have to say that my attention was targeted to find out more and get more and more information and ask as many questions as I could. I pursue biomedical engineering, and in our field, AI is really important and gets more and more innovation. And focusing on regulation and innovation is really important in my profession too. And I wanted to say that, throughout my touch with AI, I was always targeted, triggered by the idea that AI and human beings have the same kind of conception biases. We tend to seek, interpret the information, then remember this information, and then sometimes ignore the contrary evidence. And whenever we do that, we also build up some kind of biases in our mindset. This happens the same way with AI too. We give away the data that sometimes causes extra biases, and sometimes it becomes discriminative, and this causes privacy issues as well as discrimination in AI, the security issues. People don't feel safe whenever they use AI that have biases. So I wanted to say that from youth perspective, it would be amazing to have more education and awareness. And we believe that if humans can get over and break their conception biases, the same can be happening with AI. So I also wanted to highlight that the recent adoption of the Council of Europe Framework Convention is amazing, and putting the democracy and human rights values into AI is really important. And we actually, during the YOUthDIG, kind of touched the some great aspects as well, like connected to AI and border control, and AI data, and as well as techno-solutionism. So, and also during EuroDIG, we also touched the intersection of technology and sustainability today, and it was amazing to hear more about how we can minimize e-waste and maximize the energy efficiency in this field. And to conclude, I wanted to say that putting the standards and ethical considerations while we speak about AI is really important. And I really appreciate the opportunity from EuroDIG and YOUthDIG to have the space, the safe space to talk about this stuff. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm João, I'm from Portugal and from YOUthDIG, and I want to start by thanking the opportunity to be here, to share the stage with Mariam and Gennaro, and to share my experience and thoughts so far on this day. So the main topic of the day was AI, artificial intelligence, and I think everyone in this room agrees with me when I say this is a conversation of today, this is a conversation of tomorrow, and it certainly has come to stay. So there are a lot of risks and issues that need to be taken into account when we talk about AI. And I like to highlight something that I think is really interesting and that I noticed today, which is how we prioritize them. So earlier today, there was a Mentimeter screen right behind me, which ranked AI risks, and the top results were misinformation and disinformation, risks of bias in results, and data privacy. Expected. I say this because within my local community, in opposition to the people in this room, which are experts or interested people in AI and technology, the only preoccupation that I hear is the jobs that AI will take and replace. So I think it's important to link this to education and the importance that education has on this AI evolution. And we actually have a YOUthDIG message about this, which is to promote education in formal and informal settings and add AI tools and risks to school curricula. So I think, as Mariam also said, that education is a priority for us, and it really has a place in the technology evolution that we see today. So after that, we also discussed detecting AI, mostly on the text generation context, but I would like to bring attention to deepfakes, which are a growing danger, both on democracies and on individual person well-being. So we all know that AI is getting stronger, more powerful, and the content generation is becoming more realistic. So shouldn't we use the same powerful technology to detect AI as we used to create it? And I refer to the videos, the photos, all the content, harmful content that we see on social media, and unfortunately, millions of pictures every day are created using these for bad reasons. Moving on to another dimension, we also reflected today on inclusivity. And I do agree that it is important not to let AI aggravate social inequalities between countries, especially developed and developing countries. So for that, we recommend LLM, large language models, to be trained on different languages to ensure equal access to information and knowledge. So to sum it up, AI is the future and the present, and we have the responsibility to make it a healthy tool for a healthy tool that will drive humanity forward. So there is no doubt that AI will change the world. Let's just hope it is for better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam and João. Now I'd like to leave the floor to Honorable Gennaro Migliore for his comments and views on the youth participants' remarks. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Really, Riccardo, we have only half an hour to answer to all these questions because, you know, first of all, thanks for the invitation, and I want to underline that it's very important, this intergenerational dialogue, because I imagine that also in my organization, that is the Parliamentary Assembly of Mediterranean, and in all the Parliamentary Assembly, we have to implement this kind of activities. And thanks also for comments that you have in this moment, Mariam and Angelo, in the comment in the framework of this day. I want to start from the key point that you have underlined, especially the education one. I want to refer to a very recent book in the tech world. Is not so recent, but is only 1 year ago, that was made by Mustafa Suleyman, the founder of DeepMind. That his name is The Wave. Why I want to start from that? Because, for example, it will be a good textbook because he stressed the necessity to have an holistic approach to the new era. This is the key point, because it's impossible in this moment to select and to have comparts to understand what happens all around us. Especially, for example, you have to relate it, and in the debate, in the very inside the debate, it was done what happens in robotics, but also what happens in the incident that can happen with the leak from laboratory, and that can made some disaster, for example, a pandemic. And as you know, we have, for example, some weeks ago, a study that revealed that it is possible to only to have the information on the statistical approach and on the reports, the medical reports of the beginning of the last century to reproduce the Spanish virus that killed millions of people. Only acting with artificial intelligence, rebuilding of this in vitro in this kind of virus. That means that the education is very important and key points. But what happens if we want to apply this kind of education to the misinformation and disinformation? That's a very good idea that we have to understand, because it's not enough. I'm, of course, agree when we discuss about the stakeholders that have to be the debunking, but it's not enough, because disinformation already exists for a long time, but now the problem is the engineering of disinformation. And also, the problem is not only as to detect the fake news, it's important, of course, but as in the previous speech, we know that it's very difficult to apply some rules in the countries, in democratic countries, that can overlap misinformation and freedom of speech. That is a very key point in our democratic countries, because something else, but maybe I can speak about it later, use the democratic situation to destabilize our countries through misinformation. But most important is to know that you can detect one single deepfake, one single fake news, and you can hit directly. But if you have a swarm of fake news based on the organization of artificial intelligence, it's like to fight against a swarm of bees with a stick. It's impossible to defend us, especially because, and that is the problem for the private sector, the private sector is built on a bubble system. And you, in your bubble, are in contact with the people that think like you, but mostly, and most of this interaction are not with the real people. These bubbles can be made by both, and can be assumed that this viral, this alternative truth is not new fake information. It's an alternative truth can influence, as we saw in several electoral campaigns, and not only, because also, for example, for COVID-19, it was a very strong abuse of this kind of system, the bubble system of all social media, and influence part, very important part of our society.
Thank you. Mariam, Joao, would you like to react?
Thank you. So I think Gennaro touched many points. One of them, and I will comment on this, is that technology is not per se good or bad. So it depends on the hands that are using technology and what is the outcome of those actions. You mentioned the virus production, like the reproduction of the virus. That is really concerning. And of course, that when we have technologies that are getting more intelligent and more evolved, we can actually develop bigger risks for humanity. But at the same time, we can say this for every technology that ever existed. Like when we invented the computer, the electricity, the internet, there were always risks. So that is why we need legislation. That is why we also have things in place. We've talked here today, the framework, the UI, the EU AI Act, even GRPD. I don't know the order of the of those letters in English. Sorry. So yeah, we do have lots of things. We will never be able to tackle all those problems with legislation, and that's why we have the police. But it is indeed really concerning that those things are possible, and maybe the responsibility is on the generating side. Like we have to legislate and regulate the technologies that create those type of things, to inhibit it from generating that in the first place, and not just fight the spread of that like we have in social media with fake news and not only harmful contents. So there's a responsibility both on the part that is created, on the part that is shared, on the people that create that with education, as we mentioned earlier. So that's it.
I can also add that and during our discussions with YOUthDIG fellows, we were also talking about a lot about disinformation and misinformation and deepfakes. One of the solutions that we had was to implement AI that would detect deepfakes and disinformation and misinformation. It's extremely difficult to build this kind of AI to detect this kind of information, but we were thinking about it, so the idea always not always, but could build the big product that could actually help our civilizations to work against AI, not AI, but like the deepfakes and the product that could be harmful for our society. Also, I wanted to remark one thing that I should call you Johnny. Johnny said. He mentioned the language models, and I believe that building AI in different languages and language models could help actually to use AI responsibly. And in the cases of viruses and healthcare, it would be really amazing to have different languages in AI provided, so there would be like more accessibility toward that and more inclusivity and understanding of AI.
Thanks. Gennaro, would you like to react?
Yeah. Yes, of course, we need more languages, but I guess that is a very simple approach for who build the AI in this moment, because the different languages can be involved as the base of the AI. I want to react to something that you both mentioned about the necessity of laws. First of all, I want to be clear. I'm really encourage the development of science and technology. I was graduated in theoretical physics, and so also my background is related to that. But in this moment, we need a kind of new laws that can be flexible. For example, it's very important, the EU AI Act, of course, but there are some criticism about their rigid implementation, and that can be difficult to implement because you have to translate this AI Act also in national legislation, and also you don't have this kind of legislation to prevent the developing of new technologies in the European region in front of some countries that have some strict rules. But in any case, I want to stress a thing about it. You mentioned the importance of this regulation from the state, of course, and the private-public dialogue is very important. But I want to point out and to think about how many money, which is the part of the budget of the big tech to implement this kind of regulation and self-regulation. Because it's easy to talk in the conferences, but we want to know how many money they spent to apply this kind of self-regulation, because there is another kind of research that is not only the research of developing, but also a research to understand what happens. That's why with our think tank, we are collaborating with the Security Council of United Nations, with Interpol on the malicious use of artificial intelligence, because there is an elephant in the room. And the elephant is the state actors, the crime actors, the terrorist actors that use directly artificial intelligence to destabilize or for attacking our security. We need this kind of new legislation that is can be useful and that can be appropriate to address this kind of threats, but without make low intensity in the developing of this intelligence in this kind of developed technology. That helps also the AI digital divide with other countries, because Europe is a key to develop this kind and to share this kind not only of regulation but also of new technologies.
Thank you. Now I'd like to open the floor to the audience for questions and remarks. Please.
Hi, hello. So I have a question, which is, oh yes, introductions first. I'm Alan Creo. Well, I'm I do research on AI, etc. And one of the things that I'm very interested about is the detection of AI-generated content in general, which is a very hard issue. It's really hard to detect generated content. We talked a little bit about that before. The problem, and I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts on that, is that it's so complicated that literally researchers have demonstrated that it's going to be literally impossible to detect that in the future. There's papers on that. So if it's going to be impossible to detect when something has been generated, how can we approach this? And I have one idea. Maybe we should try to focus on detecting when some information is false. So if I read a news article, maybe I don't care so much about did ChatGPT write this thing, but rather is the things that are written here true? So should we shift the focus to fact checking instead of checking if something has been generated or not? Because honestly, I don't care if ChatGPT wrote something as long as it's true. And I could have, if I want to put fake news out there, I don't necessarily need ChatGPT. I can just pay a lot of people on the internet to write fake things. So should this focus be just shifted a little bit towards detection of, well, fake news instead of generated
Thank you.
content?
I saw there was another hand raised, which I think is connected, and then we cut the queue and get back to our speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is André Melancia from Portugal. I'm from technical communities and I do a lot of AI things as well. First microphone that I've seen that looks like this, but side note. Okay, we've talked during all of this event and some of the things stuck with me. One of the things is about fake news. So we're going to have fake news. This is not new. 50 years ago, we had fake news. Oh, the earth is flat. But no one believed it because it was absurd. The problem is that nowadays we have those kind of fake news. There are actual people, thousands of people that believe that the earth is flat. This makes no sense. There's scientific proof that proves that this makes no sense whatsoever, okay? There might be theories while you might think, okay, there's no good scientific proof to prove this, you can be uncertain. But these are not the cases. So when you handle things that are more social, such as opinions and subjective things, it becomes even more difficult to be able to prove if things are real or fake. One of the biggest problems we have is that Facebook, TikTok, and any others will sponsor, the algorithm will sponsor information not based on if it is true or false, but based on how many likes will it get, how many advertising will it make us money. And the algorithm, for instance, will, for Facebook, for instance, will propagate content which is completely irrelevant and false. And I don't mean funny things. Funny things are okay. Made up things, they are okay. I mean real news, or at least news that are supposed to be real, but in reality they have some fake parts that disrupt elections, disrupt pandemic, as you mentioned, and many other things. So that is the biggest problem. But when you come to think of it, 30 years ago, there was no internet, and you had, let's say, the village drunk, okay? The village drunk would say things, and they would say, oh, the earth is flat, etc. Everyone would laugh, and everyone would ignore it. It doesn't leave the coffee shop. It stays there. Then when you leave, you get back to reality. The problem is that nowadays, that reality is all around. That village idiot is actually now the person who was able to share news, and places like Facebook, they are actually sharing that news as primary content, and disproving that content is not as well shared. Let me give you one last example, which is if you go to Facebook, this was discussed in a previous session, if you go to Facebook, there are fact checkers. Okay? In my country, there are 2 fact checkers. They are both from newspapers or media companies. They are considered the biggest source of fake news or manipulation in my country, but they were selected as the fact checkers. So most of the times it's wrong. I go to Facebook and I've seen, in my case, some examples, but some other examples of fake news or rejected content was something as simple as thank you, that gets rejected. As a simple message that says thank you gets rejected as insulting, attacking, or something like that. So it's not about the technology, it's about us. We are the ones that train the technology, okay? And if we as humans, we treat
Sorry
it...
if I interrupt you. You went over the 3 minutes,
Oh,
and
sorry.
we have 3 minutes
Okay,
left for the
thank you very
remarks
much.
from the speakers, but thanks a lot for your point. Now, with 1 minute each, would you like to give final remarks?
So I feel like there are too many points in the air, so I'll just try to revisit each one of them. For what you said, Gennaro, I think you just summed up the topic of this conference, regulation versus innovation. That's pretty much what's at stake and the topic that we're talking about in the last few days. Then about the deepfake detection that we got a question from there. I think it's a constant race between like the tools that build and generate the contents and the tools that detect them. It will be impossible, and I think that one side will eventually win. Like it's an exponential growing, so at some point we will stop having ways of detecting if a content is or not generated with AI. I think with text that this is fine. We can just go on social media or in LinkedIn and use ChatGPT to write wherever we want. So yes, I do agree with you that we should try to prevent harmful content such as misinformation, but not only. That should be the focus, because at some point it will be impossible to prevent and detect those things.
Yeah, I actually have a small remark regard to that comment and question. Actually, I wouldn't say that I don't care about if the text is generated by AI or not, because if you use that for like the actual professional article or the newspaper article, it's kind of difficult then to identify who owns the credentials for who is like the copyright is really important there too, and you cannot just say it's made like it's written by AI in the credentials. So I don't agree that fully, but you can totally use that for like LinkedIn posts, as Johnny said, but like for credentials and copyrights, it became really complicated, and we actually also discussed that during the usage. Thank you.
Thank you for suggestions. I fully agree with you. I come back to the beginning, because education, not education on AI, education in general is the only way that we have to have a critical thought. And that's why we need some kind of activities, but not studies alone, no? Because some people can study on fake news and fake textbooks, but I'm joking. We need this kind of, as you mentioned, the new thinking about how to prevent and how to address the spread of, I talked before about it, because in my political experience, when I was Deputy Minister of Justice or Member of Parliament, I called that this kind of misinformation propaganda. It was every time present in our life, but now we have to point it out that we can't have the same attitude that we have with the over-the-top, the big tech, with the social media. We know the lesson, and now this dialogue can be really implemented by new laws that prevent that only the business guide their decision. Because if in X it's impossible to have any kind of moderation, doesn't matter if you make a contact with AI or by some people. You have only to prevent that this kind of misinformation, disinformation appear. Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers, Mariam, João, and Gennaro. And now I leave the floor for the very final session, the discussion of messages.